No, that thing is not hard. Jeffrey Epstein's... I went to search his address and I just typed in Jeffrey Epstein's penis. Okay. Welcome back to Best Friend Files.
Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast. Hopefully the audio you will find a little more pleasing.
Yes, shout out to my friend Michelle, who gave really detailed feedback that I in no way took personally and greatly appreciate.
Yes. We're here for the people, so we want to hear, we want to hear what you guys have to say.
Yes. There was also a request for more banter. So I would like to say that after watching the VP debate for the next president and vice president of the United States, I am truly perplexed as to how J.D. Vance, a man born to an addict, who then became a badass soldier, followed by putting himself through Yale and having sparkly blue eyes as he absolutely decimates someone who is much more seasoned behind a podium, is unlikable. Because I liked it, so maybe I'm just into men with their shit together. On our last podcast, we read up to about page 50 or so of the transcripts. We said 33, but the way that pages are numbered, there are other documents mixed in, so we were a little bit further along. We both finished the entire 176 pages, mostly because it is just the type of reading you can't put down.
Really can't put it down. Like I was blowing through it.
Yeah, it's sensational. No, that's not the word. It's
abhorrent. I mean, it's train wreck. What do they call that when you're driving down and you can't stop rubbernecking? I mean, you can't look away because it's just absolutely just outrageous what these people did in the court, in the chambers of Jeffrey Epstein. It's just unreal.
What is the word I'm looking for? Not sensationalized, but it's like that word. Like, it's not scandalous. Salacious.
Salacious. I don't know though. Isn't salacious like gossip?
Oh, is it?
Isn't it not necessarily true? I don't know. Maybe it's just, maybe I could be wrong. I guess I always just...
I mean, if it I just go by what the word feels like when it rolls off my tongue, and then I'll just take the heat later.
Oh, no, you're right. Having or conveying undue or inappropriate interest in sexual matters. You are absolutely 100%.
Whoa. Similar, pornographic, obscene, indecent, improper, indelicate, crude, lewd. All of that applies and is why this is such an easy read if you like salacious details.
And oddly enough, we had obviously read these apart and we had the exact same points that really stood out to us, which is not uncanny per usual, but it's definitely par for the Best Friend Files course. States away, and yet here we are.
It's par for the Best Friend course. We pick up at the tail end of victim or Vicky 1's witness testimony, and the first notable thing to me was just the environment around Vicky 1 getting caught and having her stepmom call in to the Palm Beach County Police. And so after she is assaulted, the girl that recruited her to go in the first place and Vicky 1 laughed together about how Vicky 1 had no idea that she was going to be in a bra and underwear. They're clearly like so unsure what to do. It's when I hear that they laughed about it, I'm not imagining that they truly thought it was funny and like were gasping for air and ugly crying laughing. This is like an awkward laugh when two teenage girls are in over their heads and can't do anything about it now. So let's just laugh about it. And then the way that she gets into this fight in high school is she offers to help another girl at school make money because, as it's mentioned later in the transcripts, you get $200 for referring someone, but you also get $200 every time that girl goes back. And so this girl, I'm sure, Vicky 1, is like, I'm in the money. And instead of spending her $300 at TJ Maxx, like her friend who recruited her did, she brings the money to school in her purse, which, like, I don't even know. You would feel so sick. How many, like, Kit Kat bars and Pepsis can somebody pull out of a vending machine? So she just basically brings in this money to, like, look cool. And then she's brought into, like, the guidance counselor's office, who asks where she got this money. And when Vicky 1 is confronted, she says that she was selling drugs. So it just speaks to the pressure she's under. And even though she may not have known she participated in a crime, just the personal feelings of having been sexually assaulted and abused, she would rather go down for what is very clearly a crime of selling drugs. So that just all really, I mean, if you don't hear the child in that.
I mean, I think it sets the tone in every way. It just shows you, like, the exact socioeconomical situation. I think we can all imagine the situation that would make that the normal response. And she also does go on to say that there was, like, a lot of fighting between her and, like, her parents, and her parents are separated, because she talks about, like, her father and his girlfriend, and she talks about her mother and, like, moving somewhere.
Yeah, so just again, like, children who come from single parent households, or had divorced parents, anything like that, the statistics on, like, teen pregnancy, drug use, getting abused, it is so much higher, like so much higher. So I think that, again, just speaks to why she's a perfect victim, and really Jeffrey's ability to find somebody. The prosecutor also is showing Vicky 1 the wrong MySpace page and saying, it says here that you're 18. And Vicky 1 says, well, yes, it does say that I'm 18, but that's not my MySpace page. The prosecuting attorney asks, how do you know? And she said, because my MySpace page, I always made an effort to make it cute, and this page is boring. As a teenager, MySpace is obviously primarily for entertainment and socialization, and the prosecutor is basically using it as, like, a verbatim resume of who this girl is, and it's just more of trying to get her to be of age so that she doesn't have to deal with the dream team defense group of attorneys that are backing Jeffrey Epstein, basically taking this whole thing out from under her where she can't get any charges to stick. Also, something that we both wrote down was that the jurors in this trial are able to ask questions. So once the prosecutor is finished questioning the witness, she turns to the jury and says, does anyone have any questions? And,
well, because it's not, I mean, it's a grand jury indictment, but yeah.
Or grand jury indictment.
It's not a trial. Which, yes, I was completely also, like, thrown by that, because it's just like you just hand over a witness to, like, a group of people. I mean, like, people who aren't trained to handle, like, victims, people who aren't trained, like, in lawful things. You know what I mean? Like, that, I think that to me is, like, the wildest part of it. But I do know that, like, it's when you're outside of, like, an actual court hearing, like, the rules are actually very different. Like, I just had to do the deposition for my dad's case, and, like, it's not the same as, like, going into, like, going into court.
So this says, I'm looking at Google's AI overview on jurors asking questions in a grand jury indictment, and it says grand jurors can ask questions of witnesses which can help raise doubts in other jurors' minds. They can also request that additional witnesses are subpoenaed, which I'm not sure why that didn't happen here.
I think they did. In it, they asked the one detective, they said, if you needed to get these other girls, would you be able to find them to get them to testify? But he definitely mentions that he definitely is asked, like, can he get in contact with them if they decide that they're going to go to trial or whatever.
I just don't understand why all 30, 40 victims weren't subpoenaed. It's
Well, because they just need enough evidence to get, so that it's probably like standard for like a case. It's probably like, because you got to understand, once they have like the indictment, I mean, then he's on trial. Then they start discovering evidence, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think they kind of have to work like hand in hand.
yeah. Okay, so and then the accused has the right to testify in their own defense, and they can ask the grand jury to consider hearing from additional witnesses. So Jeffrey Epstein did not testify, which I'm sure was at the advice of his defense, because what is that man going to even say? Oh, so we also both learned about what was it called? A trash something?
Oh, a trash pull. Yeah, that was definitely one of my, what he defined. So when they have, and what is his name, is detective? It's not Pagan. Pagan is the woman who is overseeing most of the investigation.
Joe Ricari, are you talking about?
Yes, Ricari, yes. Yeah, and he says that they do a trash pull, and that is when basically they just tell the garbage truck man that they're going to go pick up garbage from a certain address, and then they're going to take it to like an undisclosed location, and then the cops take possession of it. And apparently it is 100% legal in the United States of America. I'm not sure about other places, because once you set it out to the curb, it is considered to be discarded, and anyone can technically take possession of it at that point, which is funny because it reminds me of, there's actually an episode of Trailer Park Boys where they go around and they get someone to take stuff that they want to steal and they put it out to the road, and then they come by and they put it like directly into their car, and they're like, well, it was where the garbage is. So the fact that I guess I'm late to the fact that like whatever you put out, anybody can take, I guess.
Wild. There was a car rented for two of the victims of Jeffrey, and those cars were rented by the houseman, Janusz Banasiak. I don't know how to say that. Which I thought was just interesting, that it's another complacent adult who knows definitely that his name is being used to give high school students a rental vehicle so that they can continue bringing additional victims, which is just super deplorable. And I'd really think that we should put like a list of these assistants and like housemen, etc., somewhere like in the comments or in the description of the podcast, because I just want to make sure that these people are not just completely swept over. Like, yes, Ghislaine and Jeffrey were spearheading operations, but nothing at this scale where you have a pyramid scheme of basically child sex abuse is done by two people. You need an entire network, and there's a bunch of names here of people who were complicit and started trying to protect themselves, but nobody thought about protecting the girls. And it just makes me think of like the stop, drop, and roll analogy, like your house is on fire, so you're supposed to immediately stop what you're doing and put it out, but instead they're like watching the fire go on and they're just thinking of how to get out of the house, and it's like the house is still on like you have to you have to do something else. Seriously, no job is that good, especially if you're helping this idiot like manage his day while he's probably belittling you every chance he gets because he's obsessed with himself.
Yeah. Well, and like honestly, like who is Sarah? Like I need to know more information about Sarah. Because Sarah's the one that's walking these little girls upstairs, getting massage tables out and oils and lotions. Like, I mean, is Sarah on trial? Has Sarah been arrested for something? Because
no, Jeffrey's defense team did not allow for Sarah Kellen for anyone to speak with her. Amid the scandal, Kellen and her husband have lived a life out of the public eye at a luxury Miami Beach condo. Quote, they have enjoyed basic anonymity and privacy and freedom for many years. Kellen's husband is a former NASCAR driver, Brian Vickers. And then here's an article from the New York Post. She was his massage scheduler. And it says, this was published in January of this year, and it says she was quietly waiting for the bombshell document dump, which is what we're reading right now. She's 44 now. She allegedly scheduled massages in which Epstein sexually abused victims.
Wait. So she's 44 right now. So she was what? She was the 23-year-old?
Yeah, she's 44. No, the 23-year-old was one of the victims who was too old.
Yeah, no. I know. I was just kidding. But I'm saying she is got to be about that girl's. If she's 44 now, then 20 years ago, she would have been.
Yeah, 24. Kellen has reportedly held her cards close to her chest over the last few years in anticipation of such an unveiling that could identify her as an integral partner to the perverted operation. Quote, she had a front row seat to the debauchery. What she knows would shock the world. And that's from a source close to Kellen and her husband. And then it says she has so much to say to plead her case. Well, she didn't say anything. She just basically waited for it to go away. And so, Sarah Kellen, what the fuck?
Yeah, no, fuck that shit. she's complicit in all this. She was 100%, like we said, she's at least like 24 years old. And she's just like she's leading little lambs into the fucking den to be slaughtered. And yeah, no, I'm not buying it.
She literally lives in a luxury beach fortress, it says, outfitted with private entrances that ensure she can't be surprised with subpoenas. I can't. Like,
what's wild, like, I'm just looking at this picture of these two just walking down the street. And like, I am just so insanely disgusted. And all I can think about right now is how he's got an egg-shaped dick hiding underneath that parka coat.
Ew.
Fucking Humpty Dumpty over here.
You know, it smelled like eggs too. So this source said Kellen, who previously claimed she was regularly sexually abused by Epstein, could write a tell-all book detailing what she knows about her boss and Maxwell, but has remained quiet in order to keep the information as a get-out-of-jail-free card. Quote, it's more valuable for her to hold on to the information should she need it to stay free. Although she's not been charged with a crime, she's already been named in documents filed in a since settled 2015 defamation lawsuit Epstein accuser Virginia Roberts Guffrey brought against Maxwell.
Hold up, though. What type of shit is that you have information, and by you not giving that information out, you are thus ensuring your freedom remains? Like, what in the blood drinking, infant killing, satanic ritualistic shit is that?
Yo, honestly, like, I can't, it makes me go back to the Farmer sisters and the one who was selling her artwork and ended up getting a desk job at one of Jeffrey's houses. And within 4 months, she was like, I'm out of here, because it was so creepy. The type of person who would stay working for somebody who is clearly abusive, clearly deceptive, clearly like doesn't have anyone's best interests in mind. It's the same type of person who, when shit hits the fan and there's vulnerable people, is like, how can I save my own ass? It's just a network of socially selfish people. And it's, I don't know, like, I get that she was a victim, but I'm sorry.
I need to know more about this story. I need to know more about her victim story before I'm just gonna and I'm not trying to victim blame her, but I need to know more because she's old enough. Like, we're talking the difference between 14 and 16-year-old girls and a 20-something. She was old enough to know right from wrong. And these people he didn't hold a gun to their heads and make them come, as far as I know. So, like, there's just no excuse. You show up for your first day of work and you immediately are like, what in the fuck is this 14-year-old doing here? Because, like, that's the thing, too, is, like, women know. Like, that's something that men don't realize. And, like, I'm not saying that men can't tell how old, obviously, a young woman is. But, like, women know this, like, can exactly guess how old, like, other women are.
Yeah.
In a sense. That definitely younger than them.
Yep.
Just everything from far away. I guarantee you we could guess anyone's age younger than us within a year and a half. So I don't know. I'm not buying it, Sarah. I'm not buying it.
Unless, like, maybe he has, like, video footage and was, like, gonna blackmail her, but then it says, like, she just waited to bail herself out. We're not a big fucking fan, Sarah. I'm not into it. There was also a girl named Nada Marinkova, who was in the U.S. on a visa, was Jeffrey's assistant, brought from Yugoslavia to the U.S. as a sex slave. Vicky 2, who is interviewed by the prosecuting attorney, says that she was asked to perform sexual acts on this sex slave, Nada, but that Nada would never allow Jeffrey to penetrate her because, quote, he had a deformed penis. Jeffrey's assistant, Alfredo Rodriguez, is also mentioned in the transcripts. The victim, Vicky 2, says that he knew something was, quote, amiss and kept a folder for protection. So similar to Sarah, Kellen was like, this is terrible, so let me just start building up documents to protect my own ass and allow these children to continue being trafficked in front of my face. He is also the person who released the Black Book, the infamous Black Book with like 1,400 numbers in it. So that came from him. And he had a teenage daughter. And so he said most of the children coming in were younger than his teenage daughter. And he was like really concerned about it. So of course, instead of calling the police, he just started keeping documents. Good for you, Alfredo. Maybe prioritize the victims next time instead of your own ass. Also notable is that Jeffrey actually had a licensed masseuse who he paid $100 per session.
She could have done so much better for herself.
If only she had been untrained and half her age.
You know what else? There was something that stood out to me that I wanted to touch on was the raid, when the detective is describing how they do the raids. And I thought, again, that this speaks to where the corruption could possibly be, because, like we said before, like, he had information that, like, the federal government, supposedly he was, you know, he had information that he was important to the federal government of the United States of America, that they can't know about the address before they go. They only know how much square footage they're going to cover and what they're going to be looking for. And they have to do that so that there isn't like a breach in security. So until they literally pull up, like, they all follow like a little funeral train, and there's only that first lead car that knows where they're going. So that just goes to show you how much corruption, because they go to that extent that they don't even trust their own officers, technically, like, or a plant. It's not even trusting your own officers, who, I mean, at this point.
Right. It's just like making sure that it's an ethical process that's just and fair. And Jeffrey was long gone. Vicky 2 said that when she was being assaulted by Jeffrey, they would engage in small talk. So he's literally masturbating, touching her with dildos, and asking her what she wants to do when she's older and how her high school classes are going, which,
you know, the more I think about it, the more it starts to make, like, he must have had, like, he had to have been, like, turned down by, like, a fucking, like, 15-year-old girl when he was 15 because of his deformed egg penis. And, like, and then he just is neurotically chasing something. I don't know. But it's, like, so fucking weird. Like, the picture you just painted was just so obscenely weird.
He asked her that, and then she says that he is like, hey, let me crack your back. And he'd already cracked her back before, where she basically rolls onto her stomach. And in our previous episode, I talked about common symptoms of grooming, and one of them is non-sexual physical touch. And so he groomed her by previously cracking her back. She rolls over to wait for this back crack, and he penetrates her. And she screamed no. He stops and gives her $1,000. So just back to my whole theory that this guy's a coward. I really don't see him as being like violent. I don't see it. I think that his greatest fear is getting caught. He is more proud of his ability to coerce someone so that they're unsure if they're even being abused. To that point, one of the jurors or the prosecutor, I'm honestly not sure, but Vicky too is asked, do you want him charged? After she mentions being straight up raped. And she says, quote, honestly, I don't really know. And then there's like a back and forth of them saying, do you feel like he broke your spirit? She says, yes. And they say, if you had a daughter, would you want her to have come forward? And she says, I don't know how to answer that. And she was like, I didn't want to be here. The prosecutor says, was it because this is really embarrassing? She says, yes, I didn't have to deal with this until today. And so even after all this time, this girl is so conflicted that she doesn't know if she wants him to be charged as she's sitting there subpoenaed to talk about being raped and then given $1,000 to keep quiet about it.
I wanted to make a point because in the first episode, when we talk about the prosecutor and you brought up how, insensitive she was being, I 100%, kind of like defended her, not realizing again that this was not trial, that she did not need to establish these uncomfortable facts. She was definitely 100% trying to make these girls look bad. And I'd be interested to other people that have read the transcript to see if they also have that interpretation. I know you said that you had read an article where they did also have, that same take on it, because it is pretty damn blatant that she was trying to paint a very poor picture of these young women and the experiences that they had gone through.
Yeah. Dude, they demolished this house. 358 El Brillo Way. In April of 2021, they just leveled it.
Wait. They leveled the house where all this shit happened?
Probably because no one would live in that house. Like, are you kidding? You're never going to find all the cameras. Like, somewhere there's a live feed of you.
What in the governmental type of... Look, how is that house not completely preserved as a crime scene? This dude is alive. He has a new face. He got his dick worked on. He's not with Tupac and Aaliyah. Don't even suggest that he's anywhere near Tupac and Aaliyah. But
dude, Aaliyah could have been one of his victims. She married R. Kelly.
He's on his own island. I'm telling you, 100%. He's on his own island right now. That was one of those things that, it's like everyone jokes about how, we listen to, the words of songs and stuff, and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe I, was jamming out to that and, just singing that out loud in the backseat of, my mom's car when I was, 11.
Yeah.
Aaliyah marrying R. Kelly when she was,
15?
Yeah. That feels like that. That's what it feels like. Is how did I not see that? I'm so disappointed in the fact that the 11-year-old me wasn't wait, what? And then her first album was Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. I didn't realize that. I didn't know there was this ageist thing happening here.
I literally thought it was just about love because I was a child. I was Aaliyah's age. And now I look back and I'm like, oh, he titled that because he wanted to put out in...
Normalize.
Yeah. The fact that
she's 15.
Yep.
And she's older. She's more mature. That was the whole gist of the album was she's more mature. And that's how I feel when we were that age, when you're a young girl, that's how you feel. You want people to take you more serious. You want to feel like you're an adult. So it's yeah, I'm going to vibe with this concept that age ain't nothing but a number. And just because I'm 13 years old doesn't mean that I can't make my own decisions and be an independent woman.
The whole thing of when we were 12, 13, 14, 15 and wearing mini skirts and platform heels and lip gloss and pulling our hair back super tight. And then 20-something-year-old men would be whistling at us and in your mind, you're like, oh, I look 25. That's why he's attracted to me. And then now looking back, it's like, I didn't even have breasts. Like, I so clearly was a child. Like, I would be like sashaying down the street getting whistled at and then go like jump in a fountain to take a picture. So like, nobody thinks you're a woman. And when it's that thing where like when you're a teenager, all you want to do is be in your mid 20s. And so when you get attention from a man in his mid 20s, it translates into, I have achieved my goal. I am as mature as I think I am. Those men are not attracted to you because they think that you are their age. They're attracted to you because you look like adolescent or young teen, and they want to have sex with you.
Not even necessarily sexually promiscuous, naive. You know what I mean? I feel like it's the naivety is the biggest one. And then it's like, you know what I mean? It's just like they're just like ding 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 ding. And you're a baby. You're a baby when you're 16. And I feel like that's part of like I don't know, that's probably like an underlying social current of like, you know, obviously when you're up until you're 16 and even after, you don't think that you're that young when you're 16. It's not until you're somewhere in your mid 30s where you're like, yo, 16-year-olds are fucking babies. And it's like, obviously it behooves the male population for women to try to look older. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that they're doing it on purpose, but it makes sense that kind of like pressure.
Like I stopped getting those whistles and when I'm walking by to like give attention to a male probably at like 25, 26. And I have always looked really young. I'm tiny. I'm like really petite. So it was probably when I looked 18, 19 that it stopped, which what the fuck? That's when it should start.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, and it's one of those things though, if you want to get into like the deep, like socialism of it, not socialism, the deep, what would that be? Societal, no, it'd be more like evolutionary, like value. It'd be more of like the value, like when you get into the value of like men and women in society. I mean, it's an unfortunate truth that women are valued for their youth in a sense. So that just complicates the equation 100 times over. And again, it goes back to this whole like dynamic that was existing, because also I think one of the things that we touched on in the beginning in the first episode was when this took place. It was 2006. So like this interview was in 2006. These things happened in 2000 and had to be like 2003, 2004, because these girls had like moved on, they'd gone to college, and it was victim 2 who said she was doing it for 2 years. 2 years. She went there over hundreds of times, making 200. I mean, hundreds of times this happened. That's insane.
20,000. That's at least $20,000 if she goes 100 times, right?
Over like hundreds of times, she says, yeah. And so like they say like, okay, let's just assume it's just $200 and let's assume that she did it 100 times. She's like, that's still a lot of money. And then not to mention if other things happen, more money is made. So who really knows how much money changed hands here? But like, it also just goes to paint a picture of like how different things were in 2006 than they are, or 5, 4, 3, than they are now.
The woman who dated Epstein, many of whom now have high profile careers, didn't want to be identified in this article. Of course. This is a Vanity Fair article from the October 2019 issue, written by Vanessa Grigoridis from August 26, 2019. And it's about his potential psychological profile. Epstein's ex-girlfriend says he was quiet and charming for the most part. Jay Gatsby in a monogrammed sweatshirt. He spent most of the day on speakerphone, narcissist, and he liked them to listen in, rolling calls from financiers to heads of state. He did not drink or take drugs or smoke, and he didn't like to be around people who did. He practiced Iyengar yoga, Come on. He did yoga. Just ruining everything. He showered many times a day. He abhorred restaurants and ate whole grains, proteins, and leafy greens 30 years before the rest of America. He tied body to mind, physical self to mental aptitude. He believed in transhumanism, which we talked about last episode. And he had a theory that if you had too much muscle mass, you wouldn't be as smart as you could be. He liked to sleep in 54-degree chill because he believed you'd get the most restful sleep at that temperature. He was brilliant at understanding how people felt. He could feel energy very clearly, but I think because he's a sociopath, he would manipulate that for his own needs. No shit. Former girlfriend describes him as almost agoraphobic, with a fear of groups and a dislike of shaking people's hands. He preferred one-on-one relationships. How? Which were more conducive to sharing secrets. Other than the trips he took on his private plane, Epstein preferred to socialize at home, where he could control the food, conversation, and temperature. Hired a white-gloved butler to serve high tea. Underneath this pose looks someone quite different. Quote, he was so insecure. He had that outer burrow thing of always needing a model on his arm, says the Sports Illustrated model. He, quote, he was emotionally infantile, stunted, without an inner world. She describes Epstein watching her brush her hair and asking, quote, do you use a Mason Pearson brush? End quote. The expensive brush favored by stylists in the fashion industry. She said yes, and he responded excitedly that he did too. He said, quote, oh yes, they're the best. He was like a little boy who got his cool toy, and then he'd collect people just like that hairbrush. Told me the Pope actually gave him artisans who teamed up with this one jewelry box maker from Paris to make his dining room look like a giant version of the inside of a Parisian jewelry box. Which pope was that, and how much more damage to the Catholic Church are you guys going to do? Quote, he always wanted to give the impression that he was an international man of mystery. I control everyone and everything. I collect people. I own people. I can damage people, says an ex.
I actually just found another article, and this is wild because this just happened this June, but apparently Jane Doe 11 has come forward and is suing a 91-year-old psychiatrist who was once close friends with Epstein. And apparently she had had a relationship with Epstein in some form, and he was basically abusing her. So basically what this is saying is that this guy was like the psychiatrist to Epstein, and so he would like abuse these women, and then they would get depressed, obviously, because of the manipulation, and this guy would actually treat them, quote unquote, for depression, but would really just like hypnotize them, like mess them all up. And basically he told this girl that he was going to move her he was going to save her from Epstein. And so that she needed to move into an apartment that he could personally like monitor from his apartment, his bedroom, and like controlled the shit out of this girl. Henry Jarecki raped her repeatedly. Jane Doe, using a pseudonym, Jane Doe said that Henry Jarecki raped her repeatedly starting in 2011 after Epstein referred her for mental health treatment following his own sexual abuses. So he was literally like, go to my doctor. And then it says Doe also said Jarecki was Epstein's go-to doctor for treating young women experiencing depression, shared victims' confidential medical information with Epstein, and shielded Epstein from law enforcement.
Oh my God. Quote, Ghislaine floated in and out of the house with the keys, and even though Jeffrey told me they didn't have a sexual relationship, she'd drop under her breath that she was sleeping in his bed from time to time, end quote, says an ex-girlfriend. A friend of Maxwell says she used to joke about keeping herself rail thin because Epstein liked thin girls. Quote, she said, I do it the way Nazis did it with the Jews, the Auschwitz diet. I just don't eat, end quote. What the fuck, Ghislaine? No. In case you didn't hear our last episode, this bitch is teaching an etiquette class in federal prison. So Maxwell said the island had been wired for video. A friend thought that she and Epstein were videotaping everyone on the island as an insurance policy, as blackmail. No shit. A source close to Maxwell says she spoke glibly and confidently about getting girls to sexually service Epstein, saying this was simply what he wanted, and describing the way she'd drive around to spas in Florida to recruit them. She would claim she had a phone job for them, quote, and you'll make lots of money, meet everyone, and I'll change your life. The source continues, quote, Ghislaine was in love with Jeffrey the way she was in love with her father. She always thought if she just did one more thing for him to please him, he would marry her. End quote. Maxwell also told this woman about the young girls in Epstein's life. Quote, she said, they're nothing, these girls. They are trash.
It's really sad. I'm so sad for these little girls that had to go through all this at the hands of, and honestly, like, for Ghislaine, I mean, she's a monster. And obviously I get that her being a monster isn't all on her. Her father, as we discovered, is the one that probably, I don't know whether he passed on genetically the ability to have whatever fucked up shit she's got going on in her head, plus whatever the physical abuse did and the sexual abuse, but like, whew. I just feel really, it's really, like, everyone failed those girls.
Everyone failed these girls and still are failing them. Like, okay, so do we know what our next episode's going to be about yet? Or,
I think that people want, maybe we'll lighten it up a little and we could just do a fun little like girl chat episode where we just kind of, give some updates on our lives and where we're at, and then people can get to know us a little bit better. So we'll do that. You guys should definitely come back and check that out.
You should. And now that we know who the fuck Jeffrey Epstein is, maybe you'd like to know who the fuck we are and why we are talking at you and at each other.
Yeah, so tune in next time to find out all about what exactly is behind the best friend files.